All right, hello and welcome. I'm going to provide some information and some advice on still on the dating theme, and this is anticipation of her needs. One of the important things you can do when establishing a relationship with a woman or a significant, soon to be significant other is anticipation of their needs. Now, it's not difficult for a lot of people. Some people actually come by, like I was saying before, you got your Playboy types and, your players and those really, smooth talking kind of people who just get away with anything, the kind we hate. But those people have this in, innate, this automatic instinct to where they can predict what she needs or he needs. Again, I'm spreading it out because I realized I've been relying a little bit too much on the heterosexual when in fact I had no reason to whatsoever. My methods work for any relationship between two consenting or at least one consenting adult. Um, so, in the anticipation of her needs department, we'll say this is part of the date where my last video or one of my other videos involved how to finance the date. Now we're going to talk about how to anticipate and how to be a good date. So, the key thing you can do in being a good date is the anticipation of the person's needs. Now, I want to say that um, anticipating someone's needs, if you're not inclined to it, if you don't know anything about it, there is an easy remedy and it has been used countless times in the past. But it's gotten a bad rap, and that's what we're going to talk about. Um, Anticipating someone's needs is simply realizing what they want without them having to ask, or should I say, realizing what they want and you providing it without them having to ask. Okay. Now, like I was saying, there's tested, I don't know what is it? Tried and true, tried and true methods that have been utilized in the past. And I want to talk about a couple of them. I'm going to try and get a couple of them. But one of them is simply, as you're out on the date, you figure, what does she want to eat? You know, you want to try and take command or try and take control of the situation when, if you're in a restaurant, remember, you got good amount of safe money. So you're not going to McDonald's and you're not going to, a Golden Corral or what do they call it, Duffy's or, a smorgasbord, anything like that. You're going to a place where there's actually someone who has something like an apron on who's going to come up to your table and they're going to ask you what you want. Now, being the lead in this date, again, I don't want to keep continuing to harp on the heterosexual because that's not all that there is. So I'm going to try and curb that in the future. But anyway, the the person in control, the lead, the man, so to speak, in the date, he's going to try and order. Ideally, if she's not a feminist, really feminist type, she'll allow that, especially if you're paying. Um, Now, one of the things you don't want to do is shy away from anything because of the cost that makes you look cheap. Now, we do know you are cheap because you had to rob kids for the money, but you don't want to look cheap by ordering the hot dogs. You know what I mean? If you're in a steakhouse, don't order the hot dog, just off the top. But what you can do is, again, I'm going back to this anticipator needs. What you can do is you stalk her. So you set up a date with the person that you really want to be with, but you set it up for like 2 weeks away. That gives her time to think about it. But more importantly, it gives you enough time to stalk her effectively. Now, by stalking her, I'm saying in the first week, we'll take it in stages. In the first week of stalking, now keep in mind, we're not talking about rape or anything like that. That goes a little too far when it comes to anticipating someone's needs. It goes a little far for a lot of things. And so I don't want to advocate that. I find that to be a little bit more offensive than the naked children. So we're not talking about rape. We're talking about how you show that you care and doing the most that you can do to care about the person that you're interested in, and in the process gain her confidence. So in this stalking, you are watching her every move. You're stalking her. You give yourself 2 weeks. The first week is reserved for the simple stalk. Now that means you follow her to work, you follow her at work, and you follow her when she gets off work. Of course, she doesn't see you. You don't let that be happening, because then she would start to wonder whether there's something wrong with you. And we both know you're fine, and you're doing this because you're invested in the relationship. So you stalking her, and you find out all these things. You also, at that time, have an opportunity to find out if she's a cheating bitch or he's a cheating bastard, because in the stalking process, they generally tend to let their real self be shown. And if she's got, or he's got several people coming and going out of that apartment or house or whatever, then you'll know off the top whether or not this is a good investment of your time. At which time, sometimes a lot of people who I've talked to, that's when rape comes into their mind. But like I said, we don't want to go there. That's a little bit too early for trying to address anything like that. But the first week is spent tracking their moves. It's spent watching them and studying them. Again, your goal is to anticipate their needs. So the second week is a little bit more fun, and you want to raise your whole spirit and everything, because at the end of the second week is when you schedule the date. So you don't want to go into the date feeling like I left something out. I didn't give it my all. There's things that I don't know about her, and I'm unsure. You don't want that at all. So in the second part of the week, what you've done by now is you managed to gain access to their apartment. Now, what you do when you get in their apartment, this is after they leave, of course. After they leave, you go into their apartment, you go through their things, and you don't want to do it all in one day. It's not like something you have to hurry up and do. You can do this on many occasions over that entire week. You've given yourself a week, you've given yourself plenty of time to be the best person at that date that you can possibly be. So you go in, you go through their drawers. You find out what kind of underwear they like. You find out what kind of negligees, what kind of shoes. What you're doing is you're getting a complete understanding that you might be able to best anticipate their needs at the date. So you go through, you find out, and a lot of times you'll find out whether or not they're doing drugs. You'll find out, a lot of their bad habits, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is you're gaining enough information so that you can order correctly for him or her when the time comes. And you'll also be able to estimate exactly pretty much how much money you'll be spending. So by going through all their things, one of the things you don't want to do is to find something that you like a movie perhaps that you wish you had. Maybe you've got all of the movies except that one, and you find that movie there. Don't take it. Don't take it, because that's a way for you to get into, their apartment with their permission. When you start talking about, oh, I've got this, that, and the other movies, and they'll be like, oh, I've got one, and you already know. But the whole point is you're trying to establish a rapport. You're trying to have enough things to talk about, and you want them to feel like you think they are important. So you say these things, you mention these things, but you don't come out and just, how do they say, show your hand. Okay. So what where we are is now you've gone through their things, you've gone through their belongings, and you've stalked them pretty heavily now, and you've got a good understanding. So now you're at the date, and you're able to convince them that they have managed to get on a date with somebody who knows them incredibly well, just like out of the blue. Now, what that does for them and you is, like, again, we're talking win-win situations here. What they understand is that there's a mystical connection, and they start believing in things like, karma, whereas if they didn't, they do now. They start believing in the mysticism of life. They start thinking that this is my twin flame, this is my soulmate. And all of that works not just for you to get laid, but it also works to better them. It makes them believe in things that typically they wouldn't believe in, but do exist, albeit without the stalking, you know. And it also, again, back to ultimately where it's a win-win, it helps get you laid if that's going to happen, which it's likely to happen because you've upped the game, so to speak. You've blown their mind, So you're able to order for them, and they're surprised at how they don't, like fish, and you don't say, anything. You just let the mystery continue. And like I was saying, at the end of the date, you find that maybe she doesn't want you to go home. Don't make the mistake, like I did that one time. Don't make the mistake of taking the cab and telling the cab driver where to go when there's no way you could have known, except for, as I say, showing your hand. So be careful because you're going to be excited. You're going to get some, and you might blurt it out. So try and make sure you keep that in check. You have to keep it all in check. And that's the one way that I know that you can anticipate her needs effectively to where everybody comes out a winner. Okay? So good luck and happy dating.